Hi there, this is our Udemy course on Microsoft SQL Server. Microsoft SQL Server is the most popular relational database system for the Microsoft operating system. So without further ado, let's get started and install SQL Server and SQL Management Studio. This is a Udemy course about Microsoft SQL Server. I'm firstly going to demonstrate how to download and install SQL Server and SQL Server Management Studio, which you'll need to access SQL Server. So do a Google search for Microsoft SQL Server Express Edition. This is a free version that will get you started. This is the homepage on Microsoft, and we shall just go ahead and press the download button. Open the application. We're going to go for a basic installation, accept the agreement, install to the default location, and we're now going to wait for the download to complete. Once SQL Server Express Edition is installed, we're going to go ahead and install SSMS or SQL Server Management Studio by pressing this button, which will link to the download page on Microsoft. I'm going to press the download button, and we shall wait for that to download 5 minutes. Once SQL Server Management Studio is downloaded, open the executable to begin the installation. To open SQL Server Management Studio, go to the search bar and type in SQL. Best match should be Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. Click this. Once opened, your server name should be pre-filled in this box. Leave authentication as Windows Authentication and press Connect. At the moment, this database server has no databases. I'm now going to create a new database, and I'm going to call it Library. And press OK. And our new database is now created. This database is empty, it has no tables or any data inside it, but we're going to leave it like that for the moment. Another option, instead of installing SQL Server locally on your computer, is to use Microsoft's Azure platform. So you can set up an SQL Server instance on Microsoft Azure. Using Microsoft's cloud platform would allow you to scale your database as you grow. However, this step requires you to have an active Microsoft Azure account and may incur costs. You can skip this step if you do not wish to use Microsoft Azure. The next demonstration I'm going to do is how to set up the same SQL Server database, but this time hosted on Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud platform offering. So using cloud platforms, you don't need to install software locally. So we shall set up the same database. Click on SQL Server Databases, create SQL database. In here we enter the name of the database, in which we're going to call it Library, as before. And we can press Review and Create. So it'll take a few seconds to create. So once the database is created, first thing I'm going to do is set the password. So click on the server name here, and I want to press reset password. Now, in order to generate a strong password, you can type whatever you want, if it follows those rules. What I like using is a website called Strong Password Generator. Generate password, and this is a strong password which I can use. Paste it into both boxes and press save. Now, you should have SQL Server Management Studio open from earlier, and I'm going to enter in the server name, copy, change Windows Authentication to SQL Server Authentication. The login should be the server admin here. It will be different for your account, and the password will be from whatever you typed in or from this website, the Secure Password Generator, and press connect. If we now expand this, we should see database setup with the database library accessible. Now this has no tables associated with it, but this is hosted on Azure. Once you're finished with this, and if you do not want to continue using Azure, since there are certain costs associated with using Microsoft Azure, you can delete your database afterwards. Click on SQL databases, click on your database, and press delete button. Type the word yes and delete. An alternative to using Microsoft Azure is Amazon's Web Services. So if you'd prefer to use Amazon's cloud platform, AWS, short for Amazon Web Services, then you can also set up an SQL Server instance on AWS platform. As before, this step requires you to have an active AWS account and may incur costs. You can skip this step if you do not wish to use AWS. Another cloud platform for hosting SQL Server databases is Amazon's AWS or Amazon Web Services. This is an alternative to Azure, but is rather similar to it. So to get started, log into the AWS Management Console. Search for RDS, which is Managed Relational Database Service. Now, we shall press Create Database. Now you can select different types of databases here, but we're going for the Microsoft SQL Server. Going for the Express Edition, once again for cost reasons. Select free tier. I'm going to call the database library. The username admin is fine. For the master password, I'm going to once again go to the passwordsgenerator.net website. You can obviously type in your own password here. I've selected to exclude symbols in this option. And copy the password and provide that as the master password and confirm it. We shall accept the default settings for everything else. In this case, I have to select library 2. This is creating. It will stay in this state for a few minutes, so make yourself a cup of coffee and come back. Now, our database is now created, but we have to make 2 changes in order to make this database publicly accessible. Click on the database, click on Modify, and scroll down this page until you see Public Accessibility. This allows the database to be connected to from outside of the Amazon network. So we press Yes, scroll to the bottom of the page, and press Continue, and Modify. After the status returns from the modifying state to the available state, we can now update the database so that it will accept connections from outside of the Amazon network. To do this, we need to update the firewall associated with the database. Under Security, VPC Security Groups, click this link here. Now select the Inbound tab. Now you need to edit the rules, add a rule, all traffic from my IP, and press Save. Turning back to the database. Once we have enabled public access and modified the firewall to allow access from this IP address, we can now connect to it. Click on the database once again, copy the endpoint, open your local copy of Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, paste the endpoint into the server name address, log in as admin from earlier. The password was the password we chose earlier. Now, I'm expecting an issue here when I try to connect, but I shall demonstrate the problem. When trying to connect, it's given me this rather horrible message saying that the SSL certificate has not been trusted. This is nothing to worry about. The SSL cert can be trusted. You just need to change an option here. Press Options, press Trust Server Certificate, now press Connect. Now we're connected. We have a database server with no databases in it, but as before, we can select New Database, and we shall call it Library. And now we have a library database, which we can use as if it was on our local machine, but this is hosted in Amazon. Now, as before, both Amazon and Azure can incur costs. So if you don't intend to use the database, I would recommend that you delete it afterwards. So go back to your database, select the database, press Actions, and delete. Final snapshot is not required. I acknowledge. Type in delete me into the box provided. Press delete. And this database will be deleted very shortly.